Hi, everybody. My name's Nicole Glenn. I am one of the co-hosts of the LLC podcast, and it's an honor to introduce listeners to inspiring women who are making a real difference in logistics and supply chain. With the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories, both personal and professional challenges our guest overcame, how their backgrounds help shape who they are today, and how they empower others, giving back to their communities and often the world. So today I'm very excited. I have Kary Jablonski that is joining me to tell her story. So Kary, thank you so much for being here. I'm elated to have you a part of this and let you get to share your background and how you got to where you are with our listeners. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's start. Let's go back in time, right? Tell me a little bit about you. Like, where'd you grow up, and where were your core values instilled in you from?
Yeah, so I'm from the East Coast originally. I was born in Jersey, but my family moved to Boston when I was about 6 or so. So I really consider myself a New Englander. So grew up right outside of Boston. And I am the middle of two boys, which I feel like had a really big impact on me. I have an older brother who's just about a year and a half older than I am, and a younger brother who I still call my little brother. He's 5 years younger than me, but I think I'll call him my little brother forever, even though he's very much an adult now. So my family was really, competitive, kind of classic male dominated, sports, being tough, all of that. And I think one of the most impactful experiences I had growing up was I had the really good fortune to go to all girls summer camp up in Maine. We're talking classic Parent Trap style, no electricity in the cabins, 7 weeks, no technology, no phones. And it was the first time I had really ever been surrounded by a total community of women. And I'm not even just saying this because I'm on a Ladies Leadership Coalition podcast right now. That really was the place. I think that I learned a lot of what mattered to me, and I really felt nurtured in a way I've never felt in my life. Camp was a place where I learned how to be myself, how to live with others, how to work with others, how to kind of the give and take of being in a group, and how to feel confident that I had a lot to offer and that people would love me for being me. So it had a huge impact on me. I was there for 9 summers. I worked there as a counselor, and I'm a huge camp gal.
And I'm sure it was beautiful. I can't imagine
Oh,
camp in Maine.
so beautiful. So beautiful. It's picturesque, you can imagine. We were on Lake Sebago in Maine, overlooking the White Mountains in New Hampshire. The sunsets were unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
How was it like the first time? Because I would think that could be like a pivotal moment in a girl's life. Like, you're leaving your family, you're on your own. How old were you when you first, like the first year, you think?
I was 12 my first year. Honestly, I wish I had won when I was younger. I think I've always been a bit of an independent kid. I was never homesick. I think I was put on earth to go to summer camp or go and do these kind of highly structured but also highly fun activities. Yeah, I was not. I didn't miss home once. Sorry to my parents, but I think it was a good thing probably. But yeah, being a counselor, I mean, you absolutely see all kinds of reactions from girls, but it's since camp was 7 weeks, and everyone was there for 7 weeks, there was no shorter option. The growth that you would see in some of these girls when I was a counselor who were just absolutely devastated the first couple of days, by the end of the summer, to see them transform into these really confident, excitable part of the community kids was really, really meaningful.
That's awesome.
Sometimes you just got to get thrown off the deep end, I think.
I think so too, but I can just imagine that first, like, you're dropped off, like, oh my gosh, I'm on my own type deal.
I was like, let's go. Where's the tennis courts? I want to play.
That's very cool. So, I mean, I didn't even introduce you as this way. So Kary is the CEO of Truckertools. So that says something, right? You've been running a very successful company that's constantly innovating, and I do want to get to that. But I kind of want to hear a little bit about your history, like, when you started, basically, your work life and what that looked like, and where'd you get that jump start from?
Yeah, so I went to college in Washington, D.C., and the most meaningful experience I had there was actually being part of a student-run business called The Corp. It's literally it's only run by students. There's no quote unquote, adults running anything there. It's a collection of coffee shops and grocery stores and a catering service on the campus at Georgetown. And that was really my first introduction to being part of a small business, being part of it, building something together. So I was hired to the corp into the catering team at my sophomore year of college and absolutely loved it. I'm still really, really close with a number of folks from catering and from elsewhere in the corp. And we had the best time. We had no idea what we were doing, ordering bagels, ordering sandwiches, pushing coffee urns, dropping them all over campus. But, doing that as I was starting to think about, okay, what do I want to do post grad? That was solidified that I want to go into business. I want to be part of building something. I don't know exactly what, but I know I love the feeling of being with a team, working with people I really come to love, and building a business together. So my first job right out of college, I was just trying to figure out kind of what's the best way to move in that direction. There's so many businesses out there. How do I choose a business? And a bunch of people who I looked up to who were a couple of years older than me and ahead of me in college had all gone into management consulting. So I figured that was good generalist role to get into first. Like I'd heard from a lot of people, just go somewhere where you can work with really smart people and you can learn a lot really fast. So I took that advice. And my first job out of college, I got at Deloitte. I was a management consultant actually in the federal practice because I wanted to stay in DC. So I was working on projects for different branches of the government. I worked for the Navy, for the Patent and Trademark Office, for the IRS, for the Postal Service, USPS. So kind of all over the place. But I think it was really great advice. First early job, just don't necessarily solve for, you might hear like working for the IRS, probably not the most exciting thing out there. But if you're going to be working with really, really smart people who can teach you a lot, and you're going to be put in very different situations frequently that are going to allow you to develop, that's going to pay dividends down the line. And I thought it was great advice. And I knew very quickly I did not want to be a career-long management consultant. I wanted to get into actually building, like I had that experience in college, but it was, I don't regret it at all. I think it was 2 years really, really well spent. And if you ask my team now, I'm still pulling out the annoying consulting frameworks and they make fun of me for it, but they're really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that's something that helped you jump off and create success, those are tools that you forever map out. And I'm sure it was like in a binder at that time, right? Wasn't all
Yeah.
like
Oh,
picked up and
totally.
yeah.
Paper everywhere. I spent so much time those 2 years too, like printing out slides. It's probably so bad for the environment, but I think those are like the tasks that you just need to get reps at early on. I was printing decks. If they weren't done right, like that's not okay. We need perfection for the client. Go back and do it again. And I'm really grateful for the standards that were set for me at that time, because I think it taught me this is what good really looks like. And this is how we show up professionally. And I still use those lessons today.
I have a DVD player on my desk that I recently bought. I took old school training videos that are actually hilarious because they're from the 90s. Our COO had brought them, and I turned them into a digital file so that way people could watch them here. And I'm like, sometimes you got to go old school. You got to bring some old school basics back into your business because the fundamentals of business don't really change, right? It's just the different ways that we work through those fundamentals. So I agree with you. During that time though, did you have anyone that like stuck out in your life that was like mentor or sponsor? Is that when you were just kind of getting started?
Yeah, my first manager, Nicole, is a total badass. She's still at Deloitte, actually. She's a partner now, but she was my manager when I started. And I mean, this woman is amazing. She's a veteran. And she and I really clicked, I think, personally. And the coaching and mentoring I got from her is still something I think about all the time. I think she saw my potential. I remember she used to call me her firefighter because there'd be a problem. She'd just throw me at it. But she held me to standards and taught me how you can really care for someone and want someone to succeed and also hold them accountable when things aren't going the right way. And how you can do that in a really constructive, positive way is something I still think about all the time. And I'm grateful for those experiences I had with her because they taught me that you know, it's important to be, held accountable by someone. And that's the only way you're ever going to improve, is if, you're not just getting constant, like, oh, you're great, you're great, you're great. Actually
Right.
having someone who's really pushing you makes you develop so much faster. So I think of her often in the way I lead my team and the way I coach people. And I think more than anything, what I respected about her was she was so authentic. She showed up exactly as she was to work. And that is also something I try to um, bring to life every day at Truckertools now.
Yeah. So with that too, I'm sure you got some constructive criticism. Like if you had to give advice to our listeners, because being a CEO, I mean, you're always coming across things that you have to have some of these crucial conversations, right, with people to deliver those types of, feedback for them. What type of tip or advice would you give around constructive criticism, receiving it, giving it?
Yeah. So it sounds so trite, but it really is a gift. And I would certainly not be in the place I am today if I never got feedback. So, I mean, my real tip is just accept it, and accept it assuming positive intent. Giving feedback is one of the hardest things to do in business, because of course we all want to be really respectful of each other. And but it is the only way to get better. And if you can look at it as this isn't a personal thing, this is someone who's actually just looking out for me and wants me to succeed more tomorrow and the next day and the next year, and receiving it from a really kind of gracious vantage point, I think you're only going to be better off. The tips I got early on in my career that I think have served me really well, and the feedback I got, and one that I've actually been thinking about a lot lately, and I do think honestly women are really good at this naturally, is um, being really proactive in the way you're communicating and managing upwards. I think that is a huge skill, and kind of getting ahead of any questions that your manager might have by sending updates, providing cross-functional communications. Those sort of kind of, like, you might think, oh, like, is that even a real skill? Those can make you stand out so much, especially at an early point in your career, and cannot recommend honing those skills to anyone who's just getting started right now.
Oh, I agree with you. That and then taking that initiative alongside to set those types of things up. I mean, you
Yeah.
want to stand out as, this person's really got it. They're taking the lead with it. They're invested. That is a huge tip to give people because it is so true.
You cannot put a price on how valuable putting things on paper to drive alignment is either, especially when you're kind of in the trenches making things happen. If you can write down, here's what's happening, here's who's part of it, and get it out to everyone so they can see, okay, this is the deal. Clearly she knows what's going on and she's quarterbacking this. I mean, that will make you run so much faster.
Yeah, I have a business coach. She's obviously like a very positive impact in my life. And she always says, clarity creates confidence, right? So, and it's so true. Like, there's times that I have to give like the detail and then write the detail and then reiterate the detail and really paint the picture of, what is the clear concept that I am trying to deliver to my team, to my children, right? So for you, I
Yeah.
mean, have you ever had a situation that's kind of stuck out to you where you went, okay, I have to really divulge how this looks, and being a visionary? Because I mean, ultimately, you are a visionary as a CEO. Like, do you have any advice around kind of painting that clear picture to people on how to
Yeah.
communicate?
Yeah, that's so funny, because I have an executive coach who's also a phenomenal influence on me. And she always says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind, which I think may be a Brene Brown-ism potentially,
Yeah.
but exact same thing. And I think about that all the time when it comes to giving feedback, or, if I'm thinking, oh, do I really want to point this out? Yep, point it out, because clear is kind. Being
Yeah.
clear is the nicest thing you can do for someone. Yeah, when it comes to being a visionary, I mean, it sounds simple, and it does come back to putting things on paper. I think, especially in this, we were talking before we started recording, Truckertools is actually all remote. So we have a lot of remote employees as well. So it can be easy to feel kind of like things are just happening in the ether. And the more you can create, I mean, this is very tactical advice, but like very physical artifacts around, here is where we are going as a business. Here is what things look like, and force yourself to articulate it and put it on paper. That is what's going to drive alignment and excitement showing up on a call and talking, that's great. And it's important to be able to show up and voiceover and kind of narrate the journey of the business. But I think actually forcing yourself to get clear and putting it on paper and building a single slide or a single page that you feel is really defensible when it comes to where is this business going has been a great exercise for me when it comes to kind of painting the picture of where we're heading.
So I jumped over a ton of stuff because you had a whole career to lead up to become a CEO. So can I get you to go back a little bit and kind of tell that story, like when you stepped into transportation, logistics, supply chain, and then ultimately, how did you get into this amazing role that you're in today?
Absolutely. So, like I said, I knew I wasn't going to be a management consultant forever. So I was looking to leave. I was looking to leave Deloitte and was really interested in transportation. My mom had done a lot of work with town government growing up, so I was just interested in how did things move from point A to point B. And at the same time, Uber was blowing up across the U.S. and actually had their U.S. operations headquarter in D.C. So I was able to make the move over there. I was really excited to jump to the tech side. And again, I thought, okay, this company is hiring really smart people who work really hard, really like each other, are passionate about what they're building. I can't think of a better place early in my career to be. So I jumped over to Uber and spent some time in the DC office. And that's where I really learned how to use data and how to tell a story with data. And after a little bit of time there, I was really excited about the potential of growing abroad. I'd always wanted to work abroad at some point in my 20s because I thought it would just, like, why not? Honestly, like I said, when I was a kid at camp, they dropped me off and I was like, see ya. I've just always kind of felt like, let's go explore the world. So I had the good fortune of working abroad at Uber as well. I was part of a program that they used to have called Nomad, where they'd send folks from the US to more kind of emerging markets to help set up and transfer some of that knowledge from HQ over to teams there. So I was briefly in Indonesia, and then I spent most of my time in Mexico City. I was actually in Mexico. I ended up transferring full-time to the office for about 18 months or so. And could not recommend living abroad more. Like, talk about something that will totally change your perspective on the world, will teach you how to communicate cross-culturally. It was such a powerful time in my life and something that has like fundamentally shifted how I think about everyday life, especially here in America. So my Uber experience was awesome. And again, just taught me how to build fast with really smart people. I knew when I was working abroad, I wanted to come back to the US at some point and was considering a couple of different options. And I ended up applying to some MBA programs as an option. Again, I looked at people 5-10 years ahead of me who I really respected. And I was like, what about their careers do I want to replicate? And I saw a number of them had MBAs. So I was looking at some other opportunities outside of Uber, but ended up getting a really great opportunity at Northwestern to do the full-time MBA program. So I ended up moving from Mexico City up to Chicago, where I still live today. And I'm a wannabe Midwesterner coming from the East Coast, and did my MBA at Northwestern, which was an awesome experience as well. It really rounded out, I think, kind of my perspective and my skill set, especially at Uber. I was just thrown into these crazy situations and had to figure out what the heck am I doing? And pausing a little bit and taking a step back and thinking about, okay, what does the entire world of this business thing look like while getting my MBA was really, really helpful. And I certainly would not be at Truckertools without that, because that's where I actually met the investors, company called Alpine Investors, headquartered out in San Francisco, who were looking to bring on an operator to come in and support Truckertools after they bought the business. Our founders, Prasad and Murali, sold Truckertools a couple of years ago, and we're looking to transition out of the business. So I came in, met the investors. It was a great fit. Came in, and it's kind of that third leg of the stool, if you will. I started as our COO while I got to know the business. And of course, it was a new industry for me and coming into freight. I was in like transportation loosely with Uber, but I was not at Uber Freight. So there was a big learning curve initially. And I had to really learn how to, kind of prove my worth and, earn my stripes in freight, because it is an old school boys club, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
I had to win the hearts and minds of Trucker Tools customers over. So spent the first 6 months as our COO and then transitioned to the CEO role about 2 years ago.
Awesome. So some of the obstacles, because you'll see like different CEOs and COOs, they might be in completely different industries and jump in because we keep talking about this fundamental side of business. Like what surprised you the most though about transportation logistics when you got into it?
I think two things. One, everyone always says, oh, relationships are so important in this industry. And no, that is actually true here. Relationships are so, so, so important. And I guess it's in part because relationships drive brokerage. You have to have good relationships with your carriers or you're not going to have a business. So that was one, coming from kind of the more techie side at Uber, where it was more, everything is kind of a
Transaction.
theoretical person,
Yep.
transactional. Exactly. So that was a total shift. And then second, it was just how old school so much was. And that to me is so exciting because Truckertools, we're a tech company. We have this opportunity to radically transform the way that brokerages and carriers are operating. And it's been so satisfying to see that. And I look at that all as like white space of, okay, here are things we can do. Here are things we can build. So I was really surprised by that.
I'm sure. I can see it being a whirlwind. I got into it when I was 18, so I've like grown up in this space, but it has
Yeah.
changed so much and it's just constantly evolving. So it's a very exciting industry, I think.
Me
And
too.
I actually am used to the chaos. So I think if I went to go do anything else, I'd be bored. It would have to be something that's like fast paced and moving. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you see that a lot too, like dealing with a lot of your customers that they are just constantly like, what else you got? What are we doing? Like they always
Totally.
they're working on tomorrow a lot. So I like that
Totally.
about this industry. And you have some really
Yeah.
exciting things actually coming. So I know you keep saying like the white space concept. I mean, this evolution of Trucker Tools since you've been put in the seat of CEO it's really, I mean, I see it as an outsider, that you guys are making these massive changes. So like, what are you excited about with your future at a company like this?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest unlocks and one of the good fortune of, we have new investors and more capital. We've been able to hire some amazing people. And that is also like leadership lesson 101. Your business is who you bring on to work with you. Like it is going to live and die by that. And I've been so fortunate to have such an awesome team around me. So moving forward, I mean, everyone knows the last 2 years in freight have frankly, it sucked. It's been
Yes.
hard. It's been really tough.
Yeah.
Yes, it has sucked. We can say that. So what that did for us though, is I think, people talk about constraints breeding creativity, and being constrained in what do customers who just are not spending nearly as much money on software or tech, which they actually really need in a time like that, forced us to be really creative on the load tracking part of our business, which is kind of where we started, but we pivoted more into capacity. So we really came back and focused on visibility and tracking with a vengeance over the last 2 years. And that's paid off in spades. And I'm really excited about where we position ourselves in the market. So we've got a number of exciting initiatives coming down the pipe. We continue to grow out our ELD integration network and make that as easy as possible for carriers to join and for brokers to not have to deal with any of that carrier onboarding. So really excited about that. We've got a refreshed mobile app coming down the pipe later this year as well, giving it a bit of a facelift and making it even easier for carriers and drivers to be tracking on there, along with accessing some of our other tools in there. And we've also got some exciting temperature tracking coming down the pipe as well, which I know will be exciting for a place like Candor. So I think being forced to think about, okay, what is the thing we do really well? What is something that is an absolute non-negotiable for customers over the last 2 years have forced us to unlock these really valuable nuggets. At the same time, it gave us some flexibility to think about, okay, what sort of capacity tools will really serve our customers well. And we do have, and it gave our capacity team some really good heads down time to build. And we actually are launching a new product. It's next week at this point, on the capacity side. So I'm very, very
That's
excited
very
about that.
exciting. That is very
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, it seems like a whirlwind going over there. And there's a lot of things going on in the industry, whether it's, I mean, it's a lot of things that are not really positive, but it's looking at how do you embrace those challenges for the industry and lift them with all this freight theft and
Yep.
identity issues. And I think the more that we have visibility into equipment and who partners truly are, I think the industry will be a better place for sure. I want to jump on one other question with you. So I'm totally doing like, we're going to come back to
Let's do it.
something. I'm sorry. But this is something that I always love to talk to my guest about because I feel like it's something that is very consistent with people who've been successful in leadership. And so it's really talking about this concept of imposter syndrome and being vulnerable. And I
Yes.
love to kind of put people on the spot because I think people who maybe aren't in a leadership position yet or striving to be there, they think that leadership should have all of the answers. Women are typically known to not maybe take or ask for a promotion because they don't check all the boxes, right? So I love diving into this topic because if it's the one thing I can tell people, it's go for it, even if you don't know
Yep.
everything. But how has imposter syndrome like hit you and how do you overcome those feelings that really every person carries in a leadership role?
Yeah. I mean, I am the definition of someone who did not check every box and was put into this role. Like, I had no freight experience. I hadn't led a tech company before. There were so many ways this was a big, big, big leap for me. I'd never been a CEO before. So I, I felt that, and I still feel it all the time. Though I've definitely got better at managing it. And um, I think a lot about. I think one of the ways I've learned to deal with imposter syndrome is recognizing when it's happening and realizing like, oh no, those are those imposter feelings popping up, saying, oh, I'm the only woman in this room. Why am I here? Are people like, I'm probably like not looking legitimate. And being able to kind of abstract myself from that thought going on in my mind and say, oh, that seems like something that is not helping me out. How can I eliminate that? That's been really helpful for me. Um, and then also just like in those big moments where you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here and why is this happening? Focusing on the little wins and letting those little wins compound is, I think, really how you build confidence and how you build trust with other people too. So, it comes back to getting things, down on paper, driving alignment, working on one small deal, like just kind of going back to basics and focusing on those smaller things. I think also helps kind of build my confidence, and they really do compound over time. And then at the end of the day too, um, just specifically like being a woman in logistics and supply chain, I've honestly come to look at it as an advantage because I know I'm smart. I know I'm capable. I know I show up well. And if I can do all those things and be a woman, you know what? People are going to remember me a lot more than they are some other man because there's 10% of us as opposed to 90% of them. So I
Yep.
just start to think about like, how is this actually an advantage? And also, I'm probably more likely, there's so many wonderful, capable um, women out there. I'm probably going to be more likely to be able to hire those people because they're going to want to probably, they might be interested in working for a female run business. So I like to think about all the ways the things that I'm feeling imposter syndrome about are actually a massive advantage.
Yeah. And it's real. I mean, I still have it. I mean, I have it all
Yeah,
the time where I'm going, whoo. But the whole thing to me is about being uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, that's when you do your most learning. And then it
yep,
forces you to take this massive action, to just keep bettering yourself. So
totally,
almost like that little fire of like, I'm not feeling 100% sure of something actually forces me to start learning more. And I'm constantly better because of the imposter syndrome. I'm like, okay,
yep,
I don't feel like I'm there. What do I got to do to get there? And then I get to that level and then I go, now I don't feel like I'm there. What do I got to do to get to that level? So I think it's a constant that we see.
totally,
So one
totally.
last question, because we're almost at time, but
Yeah.
give me something that either was the best business advice that you received that you took or the best business advice that you didn't take because you were like, no way, and it worked out in a benefit for you? So totally a spot question for you.
I'm going to cheat and use something I already said, but
Okay.
clear is kind, unclear is unkind. I think, especially as women, we're kind of trained to think, oh, we should couch things and make them soft and kind of harder to understand. Nope. The more direct, the more clear, the more, hey, this is what I need when I need it by. This is what the request looks like. You can win so much that way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Kary, thank you so much for coming on with me today. I loved hearing your story. How would people get in contact with you if they wanted to learn more or even learn more about Truckertools? What do you suggest?
Yeah, find me anywhere on the internet. LinkedIn, please send me a note. Twitter, my handle is just my name, Kary Jablonski, or send me an email, kjablonski@truckertools.com. Would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.